Hey, guys. I only got a minute. They're on to me, so I got to make this quick. As it turns out, the show is just a propaganda machine by the Walmart Corporation to push sales of chocolate milk and the freshly made orange juice at Sam's. They're coming. I gotta go. Oh yeah, today on the show.
Oh, man. I tell you what, that break we just had was amazing. I got some nice orange juice.
I had some freshly squeezed orange juice from Sam's Club. It was the best thing I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to follow that up with a nice tall glass of chocolate milk.
Yeah.
Good morning, Scallywags. How are we doing today? Yeah, we're talking fan theories today. And I mean, we didn't really do a setup for that, though.
No,
that's weird
kind of
for
odd,
us.
but that's okay. It's fine. We had things we had to take care of.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
totally. We should go back and film an intro for this video at some point. We should totally do that. We'll do that later.
Yeah.
So, fan theories about popular shows and movies and things like that, because sometimes those theories just make things a little more awesome, to be honest with you.
Or downright weird.
But most of the time, awesome.
Yeah, most of the time it's awesome. There's a lot of interconnecting, weaving of the wider web, so to speak, here.
Like for example, everybody kind of thinks about, when it comes to The Walking Dead, just based on how the show started, that Rick is still in a coma dream, and that's how the series is going to end with him waking up. There's a lot of things that kind of lend to this, especially that he was kind of left behind in the hospital there for quite some time. How did he survive? All that stuff. However, Robert Kirkman, the creator of the series, has gone on record saying, no, this is really happening. He is not still in a coma. But, to be fair, Kirkman's lied to us before.
Don't get me started on that.
But those are the kind of things we're talking about here. That actually was just a bonus one.
Yeah,
that's not even what I was talking about. But
You want to start? I'll start. You want to start?
Yeah, why not? I'm already talking, so I'll keep going, I guess.
Yeah.
So, the stuff we're talking about goes a little more in depth. Like, for example, James Bond is not a man. He's a code name.
He's a machine.
Yes, he's a series of men, if you will.
Yeah.
Basically, it comes from that all of these guys that have played James Bond over the years are not playing the same guy. They are playing a series of people within the same continuity that all just have the code name of 007 or James Bond.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a number of things that kind of lend to this. Even with the there's been six Bonds currently with Connery, Lazenby, Moore, Dalton, Brosnan, and Daniel Craig. I believe it was Lazenby said something about that would have never happened to the other guy.
This never happened to the other fella.
Yeah.
Referencing himself, but talking about Connery at the same time. So kind of a jab, but it's right at the same time. In the Craig's Bond, even though it's a reboot, M still played by Judi Dench, who also played the same role in the Brosnan era. Yeah. I almost said Bosnian era.
Bosnian era.
The Bosnian era.
The Brosnan era.
In the Brosnan era, she refers to James Bond as a Cold War relic and chastises him for it, whereas in the Craig era, M says how she misses the Cold War. Going by that M is the same person, it explains that basically she's saying that she misses Brosnan as Bond versus Craig as Bond, because they don't get along as well. Let's see. There are some arguments against the theory, like Lazenby still has Connery-era gadgets, such as the watch. Moore visits the gravesite of Lazenby's Bond's wife. Dalton's Bond is known by Felix Leiter to have an abrupt marriage. Brosnan's Bond refers to the death of his wife and the world is not enough. If Bond is a code name, why does Tracy have the last name Bond on her gravestone? Moore was recognized by a friend from his Cambridge days, set way before Dr. No, and Dalton was still called James Bond after he went rogue, and they've never set a replacement Bond for him. So things like that. Plus, in Skyfall, There's we see his parents' gravesite,
yeah.
Things like that. So a number of things that go against it, but a lot of things that go forward as well.
But I mean, there's the beautiful thing about that inside that continuum, just to touch on it, is you're talking about the British monarchy's government. They've been doing this for hundreds of years. What's to say that James Bond in Skyfall did actually see Bond's parents' graves, but they were Connery's
There's
Bonds.
actually a side theory that actually explains this, that why he would be blatantly seeing his parents' graves at the house that he grew up. Why would they be buried right there? And the side theory is that in Skyfall, Bardem's character, I can't remember his name, that he is actually that he is M's son, and that he himself was previously a Bond, and that Skyfall is not the birthplace of James Bond, but rather where James Bonds are taken and trained and raised and essentially brainwashed.
Makes sense.
And
See, big government.
And there's a whole side theory that goes along with that explains, this is why Bardem's character, why he destroyed Skyfall in the way that he did, and why he made such a grand entrance, and that he had a personal connection to the place and things like. There's we could do a whole week's episode.
We could go far down the rabbit hole with a lot of these guys. We're just going to touch on them though.
Yeah.
Like this one. Did you realize that Ferris Bueller's Day Off? What's his name? Cameron. Cameron actually is imagining everything that happens, and that Ferris Bueller is an imaginary person. It's called the Fight Club theory about Ferris Bueller's Day Off. States that Ferris Bueller is just a figment of Cameron's imagination. Cameron's sick in bed, and he lets Ferris steal his father's car and take the day off as he wanders around the city. This is part of the reason why the three characters can see so much of Chicago in less than one day. I mean, come on, they took in a baseball game at Wrigley Field. 3 hours is the average time of a Major League Baseball game, guys. That's a third of your time in a school setting. Yeah. It wasn't until he destroyed the front of his car that the fog lifts and he gets a grip and decides to confront his father.
To his abusive dad. Yeah.
There are Save Ferris messages all over the city. This is why it's logical. Cameron wishes this to be real. Save Ferris. He doesn't want to wake up. Cameron's father's controlling, and he's unhappy at home, so he's like any other child. He's creating imaginary friends. The ending fate of Ferris and Sloane remembers that from storybooks. How Ferris just gets home in time to wrap up the nice little neat story arc. Again, there are others on here, but you could like we said before with the Bond, you can go down a big rabbit hole.
Like my next one, I'm just going to hit the bullet points on that, and that is that E.T. is a Jedi.
Didn't we asked that question earlier?
We've talked about that before.
We've talked about that earlier.
And it basically states that in the Phantom Menace that they added several of E.T.'s species to the Senate scene. That in E.T. we see a child wearing a Yoda mask, and that E.T. recognizes him. So E.T. or Yoda is a prominent figure amongst the Senate, so obviously they know each other. Meanwhile, E.T. can levitate kids on bikes and heal wounds and all sorts of nifty little powers. So there you have it. E.T. is a Jedi, obviously.
Yeah. So we're just thankful that the U.S. military didn't catch him when he had a lightsaber, because
that is a sequel I want to see.
I'm saying the military doesn't need to have access to that technology.
Well, that too.
Yeah. I've got another space one here. We're going to go ahead and stay in the Star Wars universe, rather. And Chewbacca and R2-D2 are actually rebel spies. This theory goes down the road that pretty much tries to neatly wrap up a couple of big plot holes, thank you, George Lucas, in the prequels. Basically, it goes on and it tells how R2 escapes and knowing he can get down from Tatooine and find Obi-Wan. Why does he know where Obi-Wan is, and how he continues to direct Obi-Wan.
This actually reminds me of another theory that I had heard about when I was younger, and that was that somewhere way off in the future that R2 was actually sent, that something went completely wrong, the Empire won, whatever the case was, but then they sent R2-D2 back in time. And that's why R2 always knows where to go. He's always ignoring what people are saying. Like, nope, you go do your thing. I'm going this way.
This way. It's kind of like on Tatooine with CP3O. You know, he's like
CP3O, really?
Or CP, yeah.
C3PO.
C3PO. Wow.
Wow.
So watch the episode. He knows more
He's
about
got
Star
the
Wars.
Lystexia. It's
Yeah,
okay.
blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it's like that. C3PO wants to go this way, and R2D2 is like,
And can I just say, I want to settle an argument that people have been having on the internet for years, and it's such a simple answer, and I'm tired of hearing about it. Why does Obi-Wan not recognize R2D2? He never says he doesn't recognize him. He says, and I quote, "I don't seem to remember ever owning a droid."
Because he didn't
own R2D2.
Anakin didn't even own R2D2.
Argument settled.
Yeah.
Amidala owned.
Amidala had R2.
Owned R2D2.
Yes. Another one, Chewbacca really runs the whole smuggling thing, not Han. Han's just the pilot, and in fact, the Falcon's not his ship, it's really Chewie's. That's why it makes sense to have the cameo in Episode 3. It goes on. Chewie sets up the deal with Han, handling the price, giving Chewie free reign to pick up where they go. Lets him deliver the rebellion intelligence anywhere in the galaxy to ease his cover. This is exactly what happens in Mos Eisley, where Chewie and R2 and Obi-Wan know what's going on, but Han, Luke, and 3PO
Keep up, guys.
are just along for the ride.
Keep up.
Yeah, it's
A lot.
It's a lot
of
here.
information to process.
But it really does make sense. I mean, because, oh, wait, what happened in Episode 2 on Keshak? Was it 3?
It was 3.
No, it wasn't.
It was 3.
It was 3. Yes, it was 3. On Keshak with
it's Kashyyyk.
Kashyyyk.
On Kesha.
Oh,
No.
that leads
That's a totally different thing.
because Chewie met up with Yoda, and actually Chewie was one of Yoda's generals on. So it makes sense that there would be some information.
See, there's a lot of things, and I've got one more big Star Wars theory coming up here that we're going to kind of wrap things up with. But
I want to finish it
people-
with this though. You notice that the medal scene, Chewie didn't get a medal. He turned it down because he'd got one from Yoda like 20 years ago, which makes sense.
and they actually made a comic mention in the comic books as to why he didn't get the medal.
Yeah, they also touched on why this couldn't be canon because of all the extended universe books, which thank you Disney are now not canon.
Hey, they're bringing some
So
some big things from the EU. They're bringing back.
they are they're
Thank
they're
you
doing
for bringing Thrawn back.
they're listening to the fans and they're deciding to. I really like the fact that Disney is listening to the fan base and is making smart decisions with the Star Wars universe, not bringing back the zombie stormtroopers. That book needs to just die.
Oh, but people like to give Lucas a lot of crap for the prequels and things like that, like the whole midichlorian thing and blah blah blah. But at the same time, Lucas does not do anything without meticulous thought behind it.
Yeah.
And in fact, settling another Star Wars argument, guys, midichlorians have been around since before the release of the original Star Wars. Mm-hmm. If you read the script, which at the time was called like Adventures of Deke Starkiller and the Adventures of the Star Wars Chapter 1, the Journal of the Wills, midichlorians were in that. So the story that came out before Star Wars was even a thing.
If I remember
midichlorians.
right, I have the novelization.
Midichlorians do not cause the Force. They make Force-sensitive people more. It allows them to communicate with the Force easier. That's all they do.
Yeah.
And Han did not shoot first.
No, look.
Han is the only one who shot. Moving on.
Yep.
All right.
We can't. We have to. Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm a
lot
little
of you-
passionate about my Star Wars stuff.
That we can settle that because somewhere at my parents' house I have my original VHS copy.
No, I've got the VHS
and
copies. I got like
he's
three
the only
different
one that
versions
shot.
of it. Yeah.
He's the only one.
Greedo never
shot
fired,
at
so
all.
Han did not shoot first. Han shot only,
Yeah,
is
he
what
was the
that should
only
be.
one.
So did you know that the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is dead?
What?
Yeah.
No, I hadn't heard that.
Well, in West Philadelphia, he was born and raised, and on the playground is where he spent most of his days chilling out, maxing, relaxing, all cool, and shooting some b-ball outside the school.
But then
there was a couple of guys that were up to no good that were making trouble in his neighborhood. He got in one little fight and died.
That's it. I was waiting for the rest of the song, but
No. Now, see, in the pilot episode, the song was much, much longer.
yeah.
it actually had an entire song to it. And basically it goes on to say that when he went to Belair, that he was actually going to heaven. I mean, here he is from a poor family, but just happens to have this rich uncle that lives in paradise.
Yeah.
Really? So, basically it says, I got in one little fight, my mom got scared, said, you're moving with your auntie and uncle in Belair. This is where he sustains injuries in a fight that will soon prove fatal and is hospitalized. His mother is distraught, but has to accept that her son will die. Now then, this is where the extra lyrics come in. I begged and pleaded with her day after day, but she packed my suitcase and sent me on my way. She gave me a kiss, and then she gave me my ticket, put my Walkman on, and said I might as well kick it. He continues to fight back to stay alive, but eventually his mother allows his life support to be turned off, and he dies. First class, yo, this is bad. Drinking orange juice out of a champagne glass. Is this what people of Bel Air live like? This might be all right. But wait, I hear they're prissy, bourgeois, and all that. Is this the type of place that they just send this cool cat? I don't think so. I'll see when I get there. I hope they're prepared for the Prince of Bel Air. Basically, as he's taken upwards, he doubts that he would be worthy of heaven, despite the feelings of initial bliss that he receives. Well, the plane landed, and when I came out, there was this dude looking like a cop standing there with my name out. I ain't trying to get arrested yet. I just got here. I sprang with the quickness like lightning disappeared. Basically, he finds that he's been chosen for heaven, and he takes his chance before they change their mind. And the rest is self-explanatory. Basically, he enters the rare cab driven by God, and he's brought on into heaven, and where they all live like kings in the kingdom of heaven, which is quite the appropriate place for a prince to live.
Yeah. It definitely, it's one of the out there ones, but it doesn't seem too bad.
Right.
I'm going to start my next one.
My next one
with a simple quote.
Let's go to the next.
It's probably one of my favorite quotes of all time, and I use it quite often, actually. Once you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be. That is a line from Spock in Undiscovered Country. But wait, is it really from Spock?
Wait, there's more.
There's more. Spock and Sherlock Holmes could actually be related. What? Yes, it's a popular fan theory that states on paper the characters of Sherlock Holmes and Spock are pretty similar. They're emotionally detached male humanoids who value logic, reason, and loyalty above else. They're highly intelligent and both requiring confidants. Both Spock requires Kirk and Holmes needs Watson. It goes on to give a lot of different reasons why, both in the finale of BBC's new Sherlock, the original Sir Arthur Conan Doyle books, as well as The Search for Spock and The Wrath of Khan. There's a lot of similarities in that. One being Holmes puts on his saves others and saves Watson from dying, much like Spock needed to do in Wrath of Khan. They both have funerals, and then they are magically brought back to life, like Spock was in Search for Spock. Back to the real meat of the theory, though. That quote I gave you originated with Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, creator of Holmes, back in 1890 for the story The Sign of Four. Flash forward a century to 1991 in the sixth film, The Undiscovered Country, and you get Spock saying the following. An ancestor of mine maintained that if you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. An ancestor. So it leads to the question.
Thickens.
Yeah, the plot thickens. So my question is, and this fan theory really doesn't explain it ends the debate. Does Spock exist within Sherlock Holmes, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's world? Or does Holmes exist in the Star Trek multiverse?
Well, I mean, like Next Gen, there was a lot of references to Sherlock.
Yeah, there's a ton of references in Sherlock Holmes in Next Gen. There's even references to Sherlock Holmes in Enterprise, which takes place before the original series. So I want to believe that Spock's only half human, guys. He's half human. So on his mother's side, maybe
So his full name is Spock Holmes.
Here's another interesting one. You know, in the new BBC movie or TV series, Sherlock Holmes is played by Benedict Cumberbatch. Benedict Cumberbatch played Khan.
No, he didn't.
In the new Star Trek
Played John
universe.
Harris.
He did play a man named John Harris, but everybody knows
he's not Khan.
he was Khan.
My name is Khan.
Like that was supposed to be a surprise. Yeah, I was totally going to go into the Pixar theory, but let's face it, the last two theories that I had picked out were so freaking long.
We could do a whole episode on the Pixar or this theory.
Or this last one that I'm going to do here. How many more do you have? Do you have one or two?
I've got two, but you know what?
You're going to drop one?
I'm going to drop one.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about my favorite fan theory of all time. Darth Jar Jar.
Oh my! As if we couldn't escape Jar Jar Binks.
Now here's the thing. There's people don't like Jar Jar.
Nobody likes Jar Jar.
We accept that fact. Now, having said that, I understand why Jar Jar exists. I really do, and I could explain that another time. The quick version of it basically being an article that I had read back in 1997, before 2 years before the prequels came out, that George Lucas flat out said that he wanted the first episode to be. He compared it to a cartoon. So that you could see the bright, happy, greatest time in the galaxy. So you would have a comparison point to go from that to plummet to, like, say, Empire Strikes Back. So when you look at those two like that, it makes a little more. Doesn't make it a better movie, but it at least makes it make a little more sense. Anyway, Jar Jar Binks, the most annoying character to ever grace the silver screen. Maybe he was like that for a reason. If you really start paying attention, starting with things like where he does a 20-foot somersault without, from a complete standing still. I mean,
when he takes
braces
Qui-Gon
himself and then jumps. We've seen other people do things like that.
Jedi.
Yeah. There's also the scene where during the battle at the end of it, where a gun gets hooked to his ankle, and yet he knows exactly. I mean, he accidentally flops it in just the right spot. I'm kicking my leg around in case you're wondering why I'm flopping here. Flops it in just the right spot to shoot down like every droid around him. There's the scene where, and if you really watch that scene, he's actually dodging
bullet. Yeah, he's dodging the laser fire.
Yeah, he's dodging laser. I just totally smacked the microphone. Dodging laser fire through that whole thing. Again, we've seen people do that. They're called Jedi.
Jedi, yeah.
In one of the opening scenes where they're sneaking back to save the Queen and from the battle droids, you see Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon jump down. Well, Jar Jar starts to jump and then just kind of changes his mind at the last second, so he grabs hold of the balcony. And then whenever he does drop down, he's over Qui-Gon's left shoulder for hanging down from the balcony. When he actually hits the ground, he's on the totally opposite side.
And he moves quick, too.
Yeah, and people think that, that was just a continuity error. But, again, Lucas tends to not do things by accident. If you actually watch that scene, there are two of the destroyer droids, the droidekas.
They track him.
That are actually following him. You watch. There are two of them that actually follow him, his exact location, and he basically bounces and comes back over here. Again, we've seen two Jedi do this.
Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and Anakin.
No, none of those
Anakin
are correct.
did that.
Obi-Wan did that when he killed Darth Maul. The other one would be Luke Skywalker when he jumped out of the carbonite.
Oh yeah, when he jumped out of the carbonite chamber. Yeah,
and flipped over to the most impressive. There's several things, basically where. Even the way that he acts we know that Jedi are based after Shaolin monks, and he shows all the characteristics of basically the drunken fighter. Zi-Quan is what it's called, Zi-Quan. There's also, let's see, what else? He's very stealthy. He gets several promotions and things like that. When he gets promoted to Bombard General, he waves his hand. When he gets promoted in the Senate, he waves his hand. When he waves his hands to the entire Galactic Senate and ushers in the death of democracy. We also know that Palpatine and Jar Jar come from the same planet, so perhaps they were working together all along. Jar Jar is tricked into giving the Supreme Chancellor ultimate power, allowing him to become the Emperor. So why does he continue to spend time with Jar Jar after that? But he does. And, I mean, it goes on and on and on and on and on. And it even comes down to something that George Lucas said about Yoda back during Empire Strikes Back. And that is that, this is a quote from George Lucas back then, Yoda comes along, Yoda really comes from a tradition in mythological storytelling, fairy tales, of the hero finding a little creature on the side of the road that seems very insignificant and not very important, but who turns out to be a master wizard or master thing. Basically, the theory goes that Jar Jar was intended to be the Yoda of the prequels, except for the dark side and not the light, but that the fan outlash about Jar Jar was so severe that Lucas just did away with it.
Just let him be
He
the
let it
bumbling
go.
idiot.
Because we know that Jar Jar was supposed to have a much bigger part in episodes
Yeah.
2 and 3, but because people hated him so much, we got like one scene with him and
Yeah,
each of
the
those
opening
movies.
scene and it's the Senate and
Right.
all that stuff.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, there's much more to that, and you'll have to read up on it. We just don't have the time to go into all of it.
Hey,
but
there
it's
was even
great.
I remember that before episode 7 came out, that they were saying that Snoke was Jar Jar. Which, I mean, you look at Snoke now, there's no way it could be Jar Jar, but still, just the prospect of Darth Jar Jar.
Actually, Jar Jar appeared in one of the most recent books, and you kind of find out what happened with Jar Jar, and he's basically just a homeless, poor street performer that everyone mocks.
Kind of like
That's canon.
Kind of like old Ben. Everyone mocked
bit.
old Ben.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just saying.
He goes down even further.
Wrap us up.
I'm gonna wrap it up sticking with Disney.
Running way long.
Yeah, I'm going. We're going to talk about the Haunted Mansion, not because it's a ride, because it actually tells you in order to escape, you got to commit suicide.
Oh,
yeah. Anyone who's been to a Disney theme park has probably ridden the Haunted Mansion ride. I would really love to go. I just don't have the money to go to Disney. Seriously, spending 2 hours in line, I don't think I could do that. But the theory stated on Reddit has the Haunted Mansion ride is meant to represent the realization of the urge that in order to survive or to get out, you have to commit suicide. The Haunted Mansion is secretly about you, the rider, stumbling through an old mansion and eventually committing suicide. For starters, the ride narrator flat out tells you in the beginning that it's going to end in suicide. When the ride begins, he said that people become trapped in the mansion and there's only one method of escape. Then he reveals that it's actually a skeleton hanging by a noose. The walls move down. It's a great ride. So unless he's telling all the Disney guests about the gloriously powerful asphyxiation things, we're not going to get into that again. He's telling you that killing yourself is the only way of ever getting out of it. Yeah, John Carradine, we miss you. As you move through the house, it obviously becomes, you see ghosts, they're dancing, and they're doing everything but being scary. Why? Because you're actually one of them. Mm-hmm. So they're not going to be scared of another ghost.
Well, because you get onto the elevator and you don't see the happy ghost until after you drop.
Yeah, after you drop. The final arrangements can be made at the end of the tour. Then as you reach the house attic, the motorized car, because this is a dark roller coaster, it's a dark ride. You get to the top of the attic, and then you take the final big drop. That big drop happens to be when you stepped off the... the next section of the tour just happens to be the graveyard, where we're presumably buried after leaping out of the attic. You pass the groundskeeper, who looks pretty frightened, as if he's just seen a ghost climbing out of his grave. So yeah, there you have it. I don't mean to end on a dull note, but the Haunted Mansion is actually you committing suicide because you lost your mind.
Have fun, kids!
Yeah, have fun, kids!
So that's going to wrap it up. What's your favorite fan theory from a TV show, movie? Put that down in the comments below.
Yeah.
There will probably be a part 2 of this.
Oh, I'm sure there will be.
I mean, we both dropped several of these off that we wanted to do and just didn't. I mean,
Didn't
we
have
still
time.
ran.
We still ran way
freakishly
longer. Yeah.
But yeah, and we could have focused on one of these and did a
Maybe
whole
that's
episode.
what we need to do going future looking in the futures, maybe
Little
taking
segments.
one and little segments like that.
We'll see. But yeah, put your favorite down in the comments below. Make sure you check us out on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter. And while you're here,
You might as well do the YouTube things, guys.
as well.
Liking, sharing, subscribing, commenting, giving us thumbs up. We want to hear from you. Please, if this is your first time seeing the show, go back and look at the archivable episodes. Take in the gospel of the show. Did I say that right? Gospel of the show? I think I said that right. Anyway,
see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Hi, I'm Dylan. I'm from the Dungeons of Doom, and this is your Russian clip of the day. Wow!
Это что такое?